All right, we stick to writing, yeah. All right, guys, we're going to start in about a minute or so. I'm going to call out somebody in the audience. Rusty, can you get me some more water? Yeah, okay. Welcome. Well, actually, did I get the high sign from the guys? We are live. Okay, great. Welcome to the future of publishing. It is you guys, right? Yes. Yeah, clap for yourselves. Yeah. My name is Toni Weisskopf, and I am the publisher of Baen Books, and you should clap there too. Yeah. I have a something between a speech, an interactive discussion, and a research paper here in front of me, and I'm going to share it with you guys. We're going to bolt the doors so you can't get out. Yeah, so forgive me if I'm reading. I'm a word person, and I do better when I have words in front of me. So I wanted to do well for you guys. So it's all written down. If anybody has any questions, we are going to try to do a question session at the end. And if anybody has a heart attack, we'll unbolt the doors. So. All right, having said that, we are going to start out today with history. We're going to end with neuroscience, and on the way, there will be some insights into the metalinguistics of pornography. So, all right, yeah. I will start off, as so many good pieces of speculative fiction do, with a quote from the Bible. Good old King Solomon, he knew a thing or two, and he lived long enough to know that there is nothing new under the sun. That's Ecclesiastes 1:9, if you want to look it up. But there's more of Ecclesiastes that will resonate with us here, so I'm going to read a lot of it. The choice bits leading up to the idea that there is nothing new under the sun are these. These are the words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Everything is futile. What does a man gain from all his labor at which he toils under the sun? Generations come, generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, it hurries back to where it rises, blah, 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 about wind. All the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full to the place from which the streams come. He's got to be referencing Amazon, am I right? Yes? Yeah, okay. There again they flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can describe. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear content with hearing. This is books and audiobooks, obviously, again. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a case where one can say, look, this is new? It has already existed in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of those who came before, and those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow after. So, with these happy thoughts in mind, let us proceed. And I will just note that if you are ever struggling with a title, turn to the Bible. How many of the titles or variations are just in that little bit alone? But I digress. I will start now with my bona fides. For anybody out there who may not know, I've been involved professionally with science fiction publishing for 34 years. I've seen them come, I have seen them go. Even before that, I was interested as a science fiction fan in the history of science fiction publishing, and I have done academic papers on various aspects of publishing, including a linguistic study of the metaphors of porn. We got to the porn, yeah. My conclusion, by the way, was that the more hardcore the porn, the more violent the metaphors, until the metaphors became real. So it turned out to be very disturbing stuff. And the message to all of you writers is be careful what figurative language you use. It matters. So you should understand that my vantage point on the future of publishing has been solely from one company, Baen Books, from my start as an entry-level editorial assistant to my current position as owner, publisher, editor-in-chief, and art director. We have been, throughout that time, distributed by a large multinational corporation, one of the big 5, 3, 4, ask the Justice Department, traditional publishers. But Baen has remained independent, economically, morally, and philosophically. That is not a dance that anyone could have pulled off. We have the reach of a large company, but the nimbleness and editorial independence of a small one. But it is necessarily not a typical viewpoint. Your mileage may vary. And I should say, too, that my interest in publishing is 90% selfish. I am a voracious reader. I don't mind admitting that I am a science fiction addict. Yes, yeah. Testify, yes. My name is Toni, and I have read a book today, yeah. Like so many of you who have resorted to writing what you want to read because no one else that you know of is quite doing what you want, I too am in a place where I can publish the kinds of stories that I want to read and make sure that there is a never-ending supply. Yay! So yes, I do have thoughts on the future of publishing, but here is where I insert the traditional financial advisor warning. Past performance is no indication of future returns. Just because there is nothing new under the sun, that doesn't mean that new technologies, new political and economic situations, new fads, and that the real explanation for UFOs can't change everything in an instant. Just ask the people who had books come out in October 2001 or April 2020. But if we are going to speculate about the future, and we are, we should have some basic grounding in the past. One of my pet peeves about some parts of the science fiction community today is a vast and stubborn ignorance about the history of the field and its culture. So we will not escape a history lesson today. You are welcome. But we also need to see the history so that we can see how it's being recapitulated in independent publishing today. So we will start out, as is traditional, with an internet definition. The internet definition of publisher: a person or business that produces and distributes something, such as a book or magazine, in printed or electronic form. It is a noun, one who, as the first source of supply, issues books and other literary works, maps, engravings, musical competitions, and the like for sale. One who prints and offers a book, pamphlet, engraving, etc., for sale to dealers or to the public. Another noun, one who utters and passes counterfeit paper or puts it in circulation. Okay, that's not us, right? Note that distributes is part of the definition. In my opinion, merely printing, either in book form or by making a posting on the internet, does not meet any reasonable definition of distribution. There needs to be some effort to acquaint an audience with the work, and that is where most independent ebook publishing fails, whether it be self-publishing or with a small press, or even with a big press. But a small press is literally how publishing as we know it got started in 1439 in Germany with Gutenberg. Wikipedia, good old Wikipedia, says that he and his press ushered in the modern period of human history. That is how important mechanical type printing was. It allowed for mass distribution of at first biblical woodblocks, basically the graphic novel of Bible stories, then the world's best-selling self-help book, the Bible, and then all the rest. It allowed for the destruction of Latin as a universal language, let all those niche market genre languages like French and English rise. The first English printer, by the way, was Caxton, and he published Canterbury Tales, still in print. It seems that English speakers have always liked their fiction, and Thomas Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur, likewise, still in print. Caxton was good. Mechanical printing also contributed to mass literacy, which we are rapidly losing, about which more later. But mass literacy allows a large group of people to release a vast amount of productivity and creativity, the sine qua non of our modern technical civilization. The earliest publishers were printers, and the roles were inseparable. As printing became a specialized trade, the intellectual part of it, choosing what materials to print, separated out. It took 250 years to achieve that change, circa 1550 to 1800. We quote Encyclopedia Britannica here. This was also the time of government-granted printing monopolies and government-imposed censorship, so that publishing was highly regulated, which, as we know, distorts the market. Also during this time, printers became patrons of authors. Before that, we had patrons. They were rich people. They were rich churches. But now printers could become patrons, and that part is important. The start of the concept of money flows to the author publishing. I quote, "In the 18th century, in the expanding literary market, the enterprising publisher tried to collect all the most promising authors to write for him. Through his personal inclinations, his sense of public taste, and his readiness to risk novelty, he began to play a part of his own in the course of literary development. As this side of the business absorbed more and more of his energies, the final separation of publisher and bookseller came about, though never so decisively as that between bookseller and printer. Not coincidentally, this is also when we get the first Copyright Act in England in 1709. In the 18th and 19th century publishing, in the industrialized countries, though wages were rising, a small business could be staffed economically, and printing costs were such that it was economically feasible to print as few as 1,000 copies of a new book. It was thus comparatively easy to make a start, especially because of the long-term credit that printers were prepared to grant made a minimum of capital necessary. Does that sound familiar? Does it? Is this not what we are going through now? We are here again. We don't need the credit from the printers. What we do need is a moderate amount of capital for that labor force and the government-mandated healthcare. Many independent publishers nowadays started out as self-publishers, found they enjoyed the publishing part as much as the writing part, added a few friends, and before you know it, you have Chris Kennedy, you have Terry Maggart, you have John Hartness, and I'm sure you guys know a lot of other people out there who have started that way. Jumping back into history, as we head into the 20th century, where the effects of the First World War prompted paper shortages, manpower shortages, and later economic shortages in the middle class, you get the combined effect of all of that, resulting in killing off a bunch of smaller publishers worldwide. World War II gave us paperbacks via Ian and Betty Ballantine, yay science fiction. And science fiction was never the same after the paperback. The Ballantines led directly to Judy Lynn Del Rey, not Lester Del Rey, for those of you who know a bit about science. Yeah, Todd McCaffrey is nodding his head. It wasn't Lester Del Rey who was the editor of Del Rey Books and the publisher. It was Judy Lynn. Lester worked for her. And science fiction's first New York Times bestseller was published by Del Rey and was, that's correct, The White Dragon by Anne McCaffrey. Todd McCaffrey, take a bow. And we will note here, by the way, ooh, the patriarchy. Publisher was female, author was female. The house was started by a husband and wife team, and believe me, Betty Ballantine was very much a force in that team. Science fiction has always been open to the oppressed, shall we say. All right, the rest is modern history, and you should all remember this part. The consolidation of publishing houses vertically, integrating mass market paperback houses with snooty hardcover houses happened in the 80s and 90s. We had the rise and fall of the mall bookstore, which in turn led to the rise of the giant international publishing houses. Throughout that period, smaller independent houses flourished, were eaten up or failed, and continued to chug along doing what they do. At the turn of this century, we saw the pioneers of e-bookery appear, of which Baen is and was a proud standard bearer. We published our first e-books in 1999. The last decade can rightly be called the Amazonian era. Pretty much everyone else out there dates the e-book revolution to the coming of the Kindle in 2007, not with the first Baen book in 1999, sadly. Fair enough. The predictions then were that paper books were dead, and as of 2019, the estimate is that ebook sales have settled at about 20% of the market. Paper books are not dead. Ebooks probably went up a few points thanks to the Black Swan year of 2020, but that's still far lower than replacing paper books. So, before we take my thoughts about the future, let's see what other people think the future of publishing is going to be. And these predictions come from 2012. Let's see how well they've stood up. This is from an article in Forbes magazine before the controlling interest was sold to the Chinese. How many of you knew that happened, by the way, that Forbes was controlled by the Chinese? Anybody? Not even Larry. Come on, man. All right, so the predictions. Amazon keeps growing. Yeah, Amazon kept growing, they got that right. Traditional publishers become increasingly irrelevant. Well, not yet, not quite yet. This is a very specific one. Harvard Business Publishing is the face of the future. Business publishing is not my field, and Harvard Business Publishing is still around today, but I don't think anyone today is turning to them as the exemplar of nonfiction publishing. Let us recall, everything woke turns to shit. So, number 4, hybrid wins. Now, you guys think hybrid does win, right? But these guys were thinking hybrid discrete publishing service companies, not hybrid strategies for authors, and that didn't happen so much. The publishing service companies are still very small. See above, Amazon keeps growing. This may change, but the giant killer is not yet on the horizon that I can see. Number 5, books go away. Everything is online and short and integrated with video. Again, not so much. This guy, the guy who was writing this article, he was talking about nonfiction, not fiction. But other than cover illustrations, which are basically marketing pieces, audiences aren't particularly willing to mix fictional art forms. Even opera and musical theater is pushing it for a significant number of people. But for nonfiction, yeah, we like our sound bites, but we also like our in-depth analysis. And I, like many others, find video too slow to transmit information. Who has the time? So no, books are not integrated with video, and one reason being the economics of the two are still widely disparate. Books are integrated with still pictures. We call them graphic novels or manga now. But this is not anything new. See above, Gutenberg woodcuts of Bible stories. So, what the Forbes author missed was the rise of the podcasts and the rise of audiobooks. Why did he miss that? Well, back then, audiobooks weren't anything new in 2012. It would be digital distribution, ubiquitous internet, and faster download times that made them turn from old news to hot new medium. But we will talk some more about that in a little bit. All right, let's take on some more recent predictions. All right, these are from 2019. Prediction, a better submission experience for the author. That was supposed to come from traditional publishers. That did not happen. This prediction was from somebody trying to sell a software package. So no, most publishers could care less about a better submission experience for the author, and it is frankly pointless to spend the money. Prediction, as a leader in the publishing industry, the author Crum suggests that the future belongs to authors with compelling stories, as well as useful and inspiring nonfiction that will keep readers coming back for more. Crum's prediction and the data behind it seem to suggest that while the publishing industry has certainly evolved, it also remains the same in some important ways. Water is also wet, the desert is dry, and you don't take a hit on 17. So, it's not a useful prediction. Moving on. Publishing goes Moneyball, which is to say that there are tons of statistics out there. Are any of them actually useful in predicting sales, or even better from the publisher's point of view, in predicting which authors will succeed multiple times? Well, I have a card from a lady here who thinks that this is true, and there might be something to that. I know of at least one publisher here that uses proprietary bots to find new authors. Are the big 3 or 4 or 5 using this kind of information? I doubt it. See also below prediction about AI. So, authors moving away from books to make money, going into speaking engagements and hits on YouTube and that kind of thing. And the answer is this is a nothing new under the sun kind of prediction. Mark Twain made more from his speaking engagements than he ever did from book sales for a while. File this under the nothing new under the sun. All right. Prediction. Increased cross-genre and cross-platform promotion. Cross-platform, I give you. This is basic marketing. But if it is possible to break free of the Amazon plantation, this is how it will go. But movie-like trailers, cross-genre, no. Tweets and social media posts from fictional characters, they also predicted there would be more of this. Well, we tried this at Baen, and they don't work. Seeing and reading are different experiences, so movie trailers don't work to sell books. Not enough people read fiction to know that it's a fictional character tweeting, not even Harry Potter. Going cross-genre? This has also been tried. People like genres for a reason. Even more narrow genreification is happening, not less. Prediction. Printing goes on demand and eco-friendly. Well, yes, printing has gone on demand, and it's not because it's eco-friendly, but because it's finally marginally economic to do so, which is another way of saying the print runs are very small, so why not? But it's not ecological concerns that are driving that, and you won't be ordering on-demand books from your local bookstore, as the predictor fondly hoped. This has been hoped for many years because we do love our local bookstores, but bookstores just don't have the real estate for this to work, even if they could make the economics work, and they can't, especially not with paper prices the way they are right now. So we have a prediction. Diversity becomes a bigger priority. If by which you mean more and more niche markets, yes, we have already seen that with TV and movies. If by which you mean more diverse characters in fiction, has anybody been reading science fiction for the last 60 or 70 years? We have been diverse by any standard all along. If by which you mean encouraging minority writers to write, sure, they will as they join the middle class, which has already happened. Does this mean that they sell to a larger audience? My prediction, not so long as you persist in enforcing small group identities, no. If you mean sensitivity readers and culture editors, see above, everything woke turns to shit. If you don't artificially ghettoize minorities, surprise, everyone contributes. The enormous upsides to this is that if the market is allowed to expand naturally if you don't ghettoize minorities, yay. So if however you mean by diverse, you mean accessibility publishing, which they did, which is to say making it easier for those with reading disabilities or sight problems to get your work, yes, that is happening and it will happen and it's going to happen even more. Prediction. AI improves content discoverability and increases profits. So there are two warning signs here. Artificial intelligence isn't, but using more and more sophisticated programs, maybe. This prediction was specifically geared to nonfiction, especially in fields that update every few months. Does it work for fiction? Again, maybe. The experiment is being run now. But I suspect AI will never, or programs will never completely replace the human gut. Is this wishful thinking on my part? Maybe it is. But the reason artificial intelligence ain't is because we have such a poor grasp on what human intelligence is, let alone being able to recreate it or in some other way parallel it. And until we get a much firmer grasp on the quantum level interactions in the brain, I don't think we're going to get a useful AI. Machine learning is absolutely a fascinating and potentially useful tool, but hell, I don't trust those close to me to buy me books at Christmas, let alone a program figure out what I want to read next. People are complicated. People still listen to the radio, even with very sophisticated learning programs trying to get them to listen to a particular set of songs via Pandora and all the modern music apps. We still choose someone we see on some social media's recommendation for a movie before we pick Netflix's. The role of the editor is important. Other prediction, personalization becomes the name of the game, which is to say that publishers become consumers of all that fat social media data and marketing books far beyond Amazon's crude, if you bought this, you should try this algorithm. And again, maybe we are running that experiment here and now, but publishing margins are very thin, and most publishers can't afford expensive data sets, and the return, I suspect, is negligible. Taste is hard to pin down. All of the arguments against AI being used editorially apply to this as well. There is a Heinlein Lazarus Long quote that covers this. And I don't remember what it is. Somebody else will remember. There's a prediction, and they mentioned blockchain. Blockchain is going to solve all of our problems. Blockchain could seriously change that model, according to Rob Giametti, CTO of Sapien. Giametti believes that blockchain technology will facilitate the decentralization of publishing, enabling any individual to contribute to a publication and be fairly compensated for their efforts. Everything becomes Wikipedia, even in nonfiction. I say no. I say no. We don't want everybody contributing to our fiction. We want an author writing what they want to write. Shared worlds, yes, but we want an author doing this. The predictor wants decentralization, and I quote, mitigate the propagation of fake news and fairly reward publishers for the value they create. Again, I'm gonna call bullshit on that one. So, having made clear that I am no Cassandra and that I can't see into the future clearly, and neither can anybody else, let us go ahead and make some educated guesses. What I care about is fiction. What most traditional publishers are not figuring out is what the essential role of a publisher of fiction is. The guy from Forbes was close. It's not to sell books, not the physical artifacts of books, be they paperbacks or trade paperbacks or hardcover or box sets or big little books or whatever. And it's not to sell ebooks or audiobooks either. It is to sell a story. Even more than that, it is to sell the experience of reading and having read a story. All the rest is just a medium of delivery, no more important than a cereal box. So yes, technology will change that mode of delivery. Publishers will adapt to that, or somebody else will be eating their lunch. If the pace of change is too rapid for self-publishers, if you get tired of changing your formatting for every new platform that comes around, or finding the software that will do it, that doesn't crash and doesn't mess up your stuff, that's when it starts making sense to cut a publisher in on the money so that they can take care of that crap for you. And you can concentrate on the real job, which is creating the story. Which is why we see history repeating itself, and all these small publishers now who are nimble and good at what they do are going to grow organically until CKP or Wordfire or Baen is the pocketbooks or Penguin of the future. But we are business people. We have to make money from those stories. We have to get money to flow to the author. We are concerned with those delivery mechanisms. What will they be? And here we talk about literacy rates. What fun. Let us talk about a post-literate America. I think that we are at least 50% of the way there now. Now, that is not a death knell for what it is that we do, by the way. And as I said before, we sell stories. Books are just the means of delivery. Humans need narrative. Narrative is how we engage with the universe, how we make sense of it. There are scientific arguments that the arrow of time, beginning, middle, end, what we think of as a story, is entirely a human construct. Whether it is or it isn't might be a nice story prompt for a hard SF concept, but it has no bearing on the business of selling stories, not until we change humans so drastically that we no longer engage the universe through narrative, at least. And here, by the way, is where I recommend Mark Stiegler's story, The Gentle Seduction, as my quintessential hard science fiction sense of wonder story. You can find it at the Baen Free Library at baen.com. But getting back to literacy and the more immediate future, and this is another caveat. This is a talk, not a research paper. I don't vouch for any of the specifics on the numbers I'm about to quote. I'm sure that different studies use different methodologies and everybody has an axe to grind. We take that as a given. So don't hold me to any specific percentages. We are just talking general trends, okay? So having said that, here is the bad news. In 1979, we were at less than 1% illiteracy, and illiteracy being defined as persons over 14 unable to read or write in any language. Starting from 1870, we went from 20% overall illiterate to less than 1% illiteracy. Notably, black illiteracy went from nearly 80% to less than 2%. And the citation here is National Center for Educational Statistics if you want to look it up. So we are now at 14% illiteracy in the US. Fun, huh? Literacy in the United States has not improved over the last 25 years, and that's going to 2018. Interestingly, 70% of inmates cannot read above a 4th grade level. Teach them to read, maybe they don't get caught. Even more depressing, that's just basic literacy. The level of literacy needed to appreciate your work, that's a completely different story. Even back in 2012, approximately half of US adults couldn't read a book written at an 8th grade level, according to the OECD. Your target audience for those works of fiction that you rely on, even back in 2012, it was no more than 12% of Americans and 12% of the rest of the world. By the way, highest concentrations of the most literate readers, Japan, Finland, the Netherlands, Australia, Sweden, Norway, Estonia, Belgium, and the Czech and Slovak republics, and Canada. And I bet that doesn't surprise any of you independent guys who take a close look at your Amazon overseas income. Baen has done particularly well in translation in the Czech Republic for years, by the way. Larry can attest to that. So now potentially some gooder news. How many people here, as this is a question, I want to see hands. How many people here use voice-activated software? Yeah, a good 25, 30%. How many of you sell audio versions of your books? That's everybody, yeah. As literacy declines, it is reasonable to ask, why do we need an intervening text version? After all, I could opt to have an audio version of the Forbes article reporting in September 2020 that 54% of US adults read below a 6th grade level. There are a couple of answers to this question. One is that oral storytelling is a different mode than textual storytelling, that we activate different parts of the brain by interpreting symbols, and that is probably important. Even the kind of symbols we use is important, at least so goes one theory. Look up the alphabet effect. But whatever form of writing is employed, reading text is arguably a more intellectual endeavor than passively listening. And also that strictly oral storytelling goes more deeply into the emotions. Someone needs to fund that study, by the way, if it hasn't already been done, to prove this. And if anybody does know if it has been done, please send me the citation. With audiobooks, you don't need to hit that 12% of literate English readers across the world. Your audience is potentially that 54% of the basically literate who can still appreciate a good story but can't read words well enough to make it a satisfying experience. Another reason why this is good news is simply economic. The more kinds of boxes your product is sold in, the more in different audiences it can reach. So sure, as long as it's economical, sell to those people who prefer words on a page or words on a screen or words whispered in their ears. Why not? Sell the ebook, sell the audiobook, sell the library subscription, sell the mass market, sell the POD trade paperback, sell the limited edition gift hardcover. Push all the market can bear. So we wonder, what will the future delivery methods be? We're already close to market saturation for audiobooks, I think. Will the next big thing be meta? Some kind of virtual world reality script? Maybe. We have already seen SimCity, right? Second Life is still going on. And Zuckerberg, for all his weirdnesses, is not stupid. He thinks that virtual reality is going to be where people spend time, and he's probably right. Will the delivery system be even more direct download to your brain than the time-consuming audiobook? Having a neuroscientist like Rob Hampson on my list, his first novel will be coming out from us in 2020, and knowing even just a little bit about his real-world research, it wouldn't surprise me in the least to see that in my lifetime, call it the next 10 to 20 years, we will be having direct-to-brain narratives. Let's see, we've got a little bit of time. I have more on the neurology of reading. Do you guys want to hear about the neurology of reading? Yeah? Yeah. All right. According to human evolutionary history, writing only popped up recently within the last 5,000 years. This gives rise to a lot of ancient alien speculation. But even if it was earlier, and I suspect it was in fact much earlier, it still wouldn't be early enough to say that we have evolved to read words on paper. We are evolved to read our environment. So the transfer, reading words on paper, is a new development. Has it affected evolution since then? You betcha. Will it affect future evolution? We don't know. See above, declining literacy rates. This may be just a blip in our evolutionary history. But some things we do know about the neurology of reading. First, we know that habitual reading creates more white matter. It creates more connections in both children and adults. Here we go. There's a reason why readers insist that the book is always better than the movie. When we read, our brain is working in ways that visual media simply doesn't activate. And I'm quoting somebody here. In fact, reading is one of the best ways to exercise the entire brain because it is far more demanding on our brain than image processing alone. When we read, we are forced to pay attention and recreate each word, each sentence, each paragraph, each page individually and then collectively into a narration we can understand. This is why it doesn't matter what we're reading, simply doing it boosts multiple areas of cognitive functionality. Reading utilizes and improves our phonemic awareness. This is the skill of understanding the individual sounds that make up words. As we read, we are identifying these sounds, making understanding new words easier. It is also why we sometimes mispronounce words that we've only read and never heard. I never do that. Our phonemic awareness works within the rules of sound and syllables as we understand them. As we expand and broaden our reading, we increase our comprehension and fluency at the same time, not to mention improving vocabulary. And again, I'm not aware of studies comparing audiobook processing versus actual reading, and I would like to know about them. We also know that there is a difference in comprehension between reading an ebook and reading from paper. This is from a study circa 2020. So none of the objections about that you hear about, well, it will change when a generation that's grown up on the screen starts processing information. And the fact is that's not true. I'm going to go, let's see. Participants read a story either on a Kindle or in print and then underwent comprehension tests. The texts were identical, but the Kindle readers pressed a button to progress through the book while print readers turned pages. Print readers were more likely to accurately recall the story's chronological order. Print provides sensory motor clues that enhance cognitive processing. That's the conclusion there. From 2008 on, we've known that dyslexia can be identified with brain scans. They have already been medicating on the basis of that science for quite a while. Will better understanding of the brain result in new technologies to deliver narratives? I'm going to say yes, and it will probably be in the realm of a program stimulating the brain directly. But even if it does, your job doesn't change. The publisher's job doesn't change. The package changes. The method of delivery changes. Industry will adapt to those changes, and money will flow to the writer, and the publisher will continue to provide a useful set of services to the writer and provide a useful way for readers to find writers. And that is my prediction. So, I think we have a little bit of time for questions. Does anybody have any questions on that? We want to talk more. You want to talk about the porn, don't you? Yeah. Yep, come on up.
Given the global green movement, do you...
Wait, the global what movement?
Green,
yes.
green movement.
Yeah.
Do you see print books becoming restricted by governments or even just eliminated anywhere in the future?
That's a good question. Given the green movement that is a worldwide political movement, do we see restriction on print books? And I think the answer is we are already seeing the consequences of that. We have global shortages of paper. We have backups at U.S. printers, and these are not these are political. These are consequences of political things, not actual restrictions on commodities. So, yeah, politics has consequences. Voting has consequences, and one of those consequences may be that restrictions on paper become politically motivated. And this is not a surprise, right? This is nothing new under the sun. For 300 years of publishing, it was heavily regulated. It was heavily censored by governments. I think you're right. I think we could easily see that again. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep, come on up.
You said you feel the audiobook market is close to saturation.
I think so, yeah.
But what does that mean practically versus the fact that you can access a much different audience through audio?
So the point is, you can reach a different audience for your audiobook than you can through your paper book. In examination of the literacy rates, we see that this is true. You're reaching a bigger audience than you would otherwise. But it is, again, limited by those people who are going to be interested in what it is that you do. So do I think my point about the saturation is I don't think we're going to see a huge leap in audiobook market penetration beyond much more than what we have here. Could be wrong. Does that mean that audiobook is not going to be important? No, it absolutely is. I think it's going to be important to everybody here. I don't think it's going to go away. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey.
Hi. What advice would you have for many of us who, as writers, probably have our heads more in the story than in what's happening in the world of publishing? How can we be better prepared for what might be coming down the line?
Well, that's a good question, and Craig didn't pay me to say this, but I think coming to conventions like this is a useful thing to do. That even if you are not interested in the business side of publishing. That is to say, you are a writer, what you want to do is write, and that's what you want to do, and you want to have somebody else take care of all of the other crap, because it is crap. Then yes, even this is good for networking, right? That you get to meet people who have successful relationships with publishers, who can provide the services that you need to get your book to an audience. And even if you don't, you get to see what a professional standard is for publishing, for your market, for your genre. So yeah, I think networking is useful up to a point. It is, and I say the same thing about research for authors. Research is useful up to a point, and that point is, if you are spending all of your time researching, if you are spending all of your time going to conferences, then you are not writing, and you are not doing the thing that you enjoy, and you are not doing the thing that will bring in money. So find the conferences that work for you, and then stop. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. So I was curious, the price for stories,
yes,
the real price for stories, it seems to have been coming down quite a bit over the years. What's your prediction going forward, and what would be the implications for publishing?
The price. So the question is, the price for ebooks has been going down in recent years. The price for stories, you're saying. Well, the answer is, humans don't value anything they get for free, right? We just don't. If it's free, then we don't think it's worth anything. So there is a bottom level beyond which stories do not fall. There is also, in the market for publishing, is that market at which point the readers will pay for the service of saying, try these stories, you will like them. And that is a service that readers are willing to give money for. But are stories a dime a dozen? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many books did Amazon publish this year? Millions? It is millions. It is in the millions, right? There's a lot of stories out there. Most of them are crap. As a reader, my question is, how do I find the good ones? And readers are willing to pay a very small amount for this guidance. Publishers have known that stories are a dime a dozen. This is why no one is ever going to spend money on a make submissions easier software package. If the writers really want to, they're going to find a way to get their stories to the publishers. So the question is sort of twofold. How do readers find the good stories, and how do writers find a place where they can get their stories to readers? This is why we need publishers. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just kind of. So I have daughters, teenage daughters.
Teenage daughters.
Video
yes.
games.
Yes.
But it's not like it's very. So my daughter loved the game Under the Moon. Crappy graphics, but it was mostly text-based, right?
Yep. You
would walk into a room, and then there'd be a wall of text, and you would read that through. And my daughter also loved the web comic Homestuck, which was like mostly text-based, right? Like
yeah.
So I'm wondering your thoughts on video games and kind of like narrative, but narrative in kind of a not the traditional type of like I sit down and read a book.
Yeah, no, I think humans are also visual, right? Humans engage the world. That is their main sensory input, hearing and smell as well. But we are very visual, and it is interesting to see how the brain processes the visual as opposed to processes the textual. So it's a complicated question. Do I think that games and movies and manga mean that writing in text is going to go away? I don't think so, because I think it does different things to different parts of the brain. So I don't think that means the death of storytelling as we do it. It is a different kind of storytelling, but I don't think it. But because it does different things in the brain, I don't think it replaces it. Is that direct neural stimulation of story going to also be direct neural stimulation of pictures? Maybe. My guess is not, because again, it processes in different ways. We process pictures in different ways. We process pictures faster, for one. And I don't think they are going to meld. What we are seeing, of course, is that there's a huge rise in games and gaming and an imposition of narrative on some of those, not all of them. They're not all narrative-based. They're more experience-based. So the answer is I don't know. I think Harry Potter is my exemplar here, right? This was a generation that was supposed to be all video games and all ebooks, and they read big, fat paper books because it was a good freaking story. And I think that's what it all boils down to. So thank you guys for coming.